Welcome, low ego action heroes. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We are a full service CX and UX consultancy. And this is my Axure 10 Core Skills course. I've been using Axure since February 2011, and I've been teaching it for many, many years. And in fact, I've been one of Axure's recommended trainers since 2014. This course is designed to take you from super Axure newbie or Axure afraid all the way through to confident intermediate. So if you've landed on this one video, there are many, many others. Please check our Axure lessons playlist for a lot more videos about using Axure. The Delta CX YouTube channel has over 500 videos on it as of when I'm recording this in December 2021, and I hope you'll subscribe and join in some of our live streams. I'm live usually 3 or 4 times a week with teaching UX research and design, talking about CX, helping people get into the profession, helping leaders and managers, and of course, don't forget Tuesday, office hours, Ask Me Anything. So subscribe and hang out here. So thanks for being here. Please subscribe and let's jump into that next Axure lesson.
Exploring dynamic panels further, let's take a look at what if we wanted to do the type of panel that shows because it is a dialog box or overlay or modal or pop-up, whatever word you want to use for it. Let's imagine it's something that comes up on the screen and interrupts what people are doing and requires them to respond. Now, either that could be a dialog box, or are you sure you want to delete this, or maybe you just have the type of pop-up or overlay where as part of people's task, something comes up on top of everything else and people have to deal with that panel before they can go back to the rest of the page. No matter what it is, for the purposes of our time together, I might call these pop-ups, overlays, modals, and in reality, Axure thinks of this as a lightbox. So we'll just call it lightbox for short, whether it's a dialogue or something else. So I've gone back to one of my ugly pages to build some things here. So I'm going to start with the dynamic panel that will represent whatever this is. And remember, you can make your dynamic panel any size you want. It could be small like this, and it could say, are you sure you want to delete everything? Yes, no, with hopefully some very clear copy there. And it could be a much larger thing where you have steps of a process for people where it pops up and maybe they have to upload something or select certain parameters or enter further information. So the technique is not reliant on the size of the panel or what the panel is there for. The technique is really all about using the panel and then building the right interaction so that everything works the way the user would expect it to work. So I'll just go back to this size panel and I'll throw it in the middle, though of course we learned in a previous lesson that we can pin it, and I'll pin it again so that we can mess with that. But since I have a fresh dynamic panel, I'm going to name it Lightbox Panel so I can easily find it, though I think on this page there are no other panels, but I like to name things very clearly. That's just my style. So let's go into the panel and let's create something. Now, once I've double clicked on the panel, I'm in state 1 and I can edit here, but for some people they prefer to edit in Axure's dynamic panel kind of isolation mode, which exists in all versions of Axure. It just looks different in the UI. So for Axure 10, you go to View All. Now I've got my dynamic panel isolated, and maybe my dynamic panel has some sort of background box, and we can always give this a global widget style, especially if we want to have rounded corners or some sort of style where as we build other similar dialogues, lightboxes, pop-ups, etc., they have some similar styling for that kind of boundary box. And remember that dynamic panels are by default see-through. If we don't give this some sort of background shape or color, our panel is going to be completely transparent, which is a common mistake. So if you've got a panel and it's completely see-through, you're going to want to put some sort of shape behind it. You can also put a solid color into a panel with, if we just click away from the box, we can see that there is fill for the panel state, but we're going to play with that in our later lesson on pinned panels. So for now, I have this box, and if I care about it having rounded corners or other things, we could globally style it. But just to focus on the technique, I'm going to not bother over styling this. Let's grab some text. It doesn't have to be H2, of course. That may not make sense for your hierarchy or accessibility, but I'm just going to grab some large text, which again, you would probably also have global styling for. And we might say, are you sure you want to cancel and delete all of your files? I'm not much for interrupting people's tasks, especially to ask them questions. Let's pretend we centered that. But there are some times where we do want to interrupt them and make sure that they meant to do what they're doing. Otherwise, we have to give them some sort of message that gives them a chance to undo it or other ways to undo it later. Remember, that's one of our key heuristics, that you can recover from errors as well as you can undo a mistake. So just remember that. In this case, let's pretend that we've got, are you sure you want to cancel and delete all of your files? Maybe there's going to be some copy here about the multi-dimensional dangers of canceling, and are you sure, and maybe you want to downgrade your account, whatever marketing is making you put there. And then I could say we have a primary button, and as we know, especially when it comes to canceling or deleting, the primary button is very often no, do not cancel it, keep my account, don't delete my files. It really depends on what you think the user's intention might be here and whether or not you're helping them accomplish a task or saving them from a mistake. So you can decide whether the primary button is yeah, cancel, or whether the secondary button is yeah, cancel. And let's see, I can also make this a little bit smaller, and I could do a fit to content so that the panel will be the size of the message or pop-up or dialogue that's in it. So let's make sure that we have very clear messages here. Cancel. I'm hoping this is clear, but again, get your content strategist or copywriter to help you out here, especially when it comes to canceling. You don't want to give people a cancel button, because does that cancel the canceling or cancel the everything? And of course, sometimes these boxes either have an X at the top or they have the action buttons, because one of these buttons will essentially cancel this and close the box. So you don't necessarily have to put both. If you do want to put that X in the corner, I did that in that previous error messages lesson, so you can see how we did that, plus the hotspot. And here we can just say if they don't want to cancel, then we're going to take them out of here and just make this panel go away. So I can build an interaction on this button where basically the panel that has the message just closes and nothing changes. So we could say Lightbox panel is going to hide with a fade out. If you'd like fades, oops, that's a slide. Fade, okay. Now let's baby step test that. Since this wasn't hidden by default, we can see it by default. So that means we can interact with it and practice hiding this even though we haven't built what's going to show it. So I can say, no, do not cancel, and it just goes away. What are some other things that we might want to set up on this panel? Well, we might want this panel to be pinned to the browser. You can see when it came up, it wasn't really centered in any way, so we might want to click on our panel, go to Style, do our pin to browser again, which we practiced in a previous lesson and we'll have a full lesson on later. We could say center left to right, middle top to bottom, and make sure it's always in the front so we don't end up with a layering problem, and save. So baby step test, refresh. There it is. So especially if we hide the Axure bar, you can see that this is centered left to right and vertically aligned to the middle as well. Now, when this thing pops up, we're probably going to want that lightbox effect. So let's create a button or an action that's going to bring this message up, but it also means we have to tell Axure by default people can't see this panel, which either means clicking the eyeball over here. It's also available in the context menu under Set Hidden. And now we have our yellow widget, which is the mask telling us that this is a hidden item. So I'm just going to grab yet another button, and say this is going to be our light box, just to remind us what it does. If you're messing with my file later, this will bring up the light box. And we did talk about treat as lightbox earlier, but we're going to do it for reals now. So I can say when people click the button, show this. Again, pretending it's at a certain point in a user's workflow or task where we would need to interrupt them and show this to them. So when this button is clicked, show the lightbox panel, maybe a fade in, and don't forget special behavior, treat as lightbox. Let's give it a background color. So let's say I want, just for fun, let's try 92% black, might be too dark or almost black, see what we think of it. And we don't need bring target to front because we did pin this panel, and so the pinning already brings it to the front. So let's see how this looks and how we feel about it. Click Lightbox. There we go. That's not bad. I like that. Now, a couple of things. Sometimes people ask, well, how do I get that blurred look for the background, not the overlaying a partially transparent color look? And I say, as of when I'm recording this, Axure does not have the blurred look. If they ever do that, I'll add a lesson. But that is not currently available. Also remember the way the Lightbox works is you can interact with the panel that you brought up, or if you click outside of it, the panel and the coloring go away. The other question I typically get is, hey, I wish I could globally control the color that I have selected for the Lightbox. And believe me, I feel you there, because I have actually had a client tell me to change all of my Lightbox background colors throughout an entire prototype, and I had a bunch of them on different pages, and guess what? There is no global widget style. Now, I've been asking for a global widget style for this since 2016, roughly April. So it would be a wonderful thing if every time you picked a color or font for anything, you could use global widget styles. But unfortunately, Axure doesn't have it. They're not hiding somewhere here. They are just not here. Sure, it's got your favorites or recents, but you don't have global control over this. That means if at some point somebody says, hey, we're not using 92% 333 color anymore, go change it, you have to find every time you pulled up a Lightbox, you have to find the interaction, you have to find the show. You don't have to worry about the hide goes away. You have to find the show, and you have to fix the color. I don't love that. I wish they'd fix that, but I guess on the list of problems it's pretty low, since this is how it has been for many years now. So again, remember that you can make this into whatever you want. You can have multiple states of the panel here if you have different things that are cooking. Let's do a quick example. Let's say, for example, that I duplicate state 1. Okay, so I have duplicated this state. I now have state 1 and state 2. Now let's imagine that instead of this being a single message of, are you sure you want to delete all your files? Let's imagine that this is something that's got a little bit more of a process. Let's imagine that this is log in. Though again, nowadays many people are doing logins on pages. They're not doing them as pop-ups, but some people still do them as some sort of pop-up or dialogue. So let's say that this says login. And let's imagine, and I'm not going to bother building all of this out for our time together, but let's imagine that we've got a forget password option. Not forget it, I forgot it. Help, forgot my password. And so we can imagine that that is linked text. And of course, we can give it our global widget style if we would like. The last time I saw this style, it needed a little bit of love. But let's just use it for now. It's got a funky box around it. Get out of here, funky box. Where is that? So remember, you can fix a style anytime you want, but remember, it will affect every place you've assigned this style in your entire document. So you want to make sure that this is a change you mean to make for everywhere this lives. So let's say we need help. I forgot my password. And let's say login closes this and pretends that people have logged in, or maybe moves them to a new page where we've got a logged in state. So close the Lightbox panel, maybe with a lovely fade out. And then let's imagine when they get to this screen, we say reset your password, and we can give them a form field, and we can say, here's a form field. I'm just using medium fidelity right now, and maybe this says back, and we'll make back do something neat in a moment. So let's take off what this does. Oh, I forgot to do treat as lightbox on this guy. Oh, because it hides the lightbox. Yeah, never mind. So this could be back, and this could be reset my password. And this will be your form field. And again, maybe we have a little bit of text over here saying something about resetting your password. And I like to use lorem ipsum a lot because I'm usually not the copywriter on the project, but I do like to try to show the amount of text that we're going to have, which would be short. And I do like to say lorem ipsum, enter your email and we'll send you a link to reset your password. So I like to put the intention of the lorem ipsum, even if I only write lorem ipsum, but that helps everybody know this is not finalized content. I'm not stealing anybody's job. The writer can still write. So let's imagine it's this. Now this is kind of ugly. I wouldn't necessarily do this. I'm definitely more of a left justified person than a centered person, but we're not going to worry about layout right now. We're going to learn some functions. So let's imagine that reset my password. Maybe there's even a third state of this. And let's see, I can duplicate this state. Let's make our third state a copy of this one. I wonder, can I drag and drop these? No, Axure thinks I'm doing that. So I'm going to have to drag and drop their order over here, or maybe the order doesn't matter, but let's say email sent. We won't need a link here. We'll need some sort of lorem ipsum. We sent you, please check your email. So lorem ipsum, please check your email for a reset link. And again, sometimes people put the address it's coming from. Please check your email for, we sent it from thingy. We sent it from hello@deltacx.com. And again, someone will make that better. And then I can just say, okay. And again, we already have OK closing this panel, so that's fine. So now let's use these panels to move from this panel to this panel to this panel. And this is just changing panel states. So we can say, help, I forgot my password, and we can build it right on this text. But again, if you want to give it a larger tappable area, put your hotspot over it. I often do that. But here I'll just build right on the words because you know what you're doing there. If people click on these words, set panel state of the Lightbox panel, to state 2. It doesn't matter if these are in order or not. Axure doesn't care. We're just going to go to state 2. We can decide how this animates. Is it a fade? Does it feel like we're moving forward and there's a slide? So you can play with different animations and see how you feel about it. Flip is a little cheesy. I'm not sure when anyone would use that, but if you find a use for it, great. It could be a fade. Let's imagine it's a slide left just to have something to play with right now. And then we can say, same thing would be for back. What if people go, oh, wait, I don't need to reset my password. I know it. And again, imagine this login had username and password fields. So same thing for back. It's just a change of panel state. If people click on the back button, set the panel state of the Lightbox panel back to state 1, maybe with a slide right, so it looks like it's got a reverse motion. And maybe reset my password closes this. I could steal the interaction from here. It's the same thing. So copy, reset password, paste. All right, so now let's go back out to our page. Backwards, Click away, click away. Okay, so this is hidden by default, but our button will bring it up. Let's do some testing and see how that looks. Lightbox. Oh no, I forgot my password. There is that left slide, so you can decide whether or not you like that. And if I go, oh wait, I do remember my password. There's that right slide, which gives us that feeling of moving backwards between two panel states. Or I can say, I'm just logging in. But we can go back, and I could say, help, I forgot my password. Now, remember, this is the state we're looking at right now, and I could say reset. If we want to test that again and we haven't hit refresh, remember we last left that panel with the state being reset my password. When I pull up the lightbox, here it is again. That's a mistake. When the lightbox comes up, we want to make sure it's showing the first step of that process, state 1. That means we should come back to the button. We should come back to our interactions, double click and add that set panel state so that we're specifically telling Axure which state we want to show. You can't go wrong telling Axure that, but again, I like to reorder these to make sure that we're setting that panel state before we show the panel so that there isn't accidentally a moment where people see the panel state changing from one to another. So now Lightbox, I forgot my password, close it. It's still on reset my password. But now if I click Lightbox, it should change behind the scenes back to the login and show that. There you go. So again, if you are having trouble where when you pull up dynamic panels, you're pulling up the wrong state, you're not getting that first state, just remember to go back to your interaction, add a set panel state specifically to the state you want, and drag it so that it's the first thing that's happening. And again, if I click outside of this, it will just go away. That is the nature of the lightbox. If I continue with this, now here we had reset my password, closing it. That's not what we intended. We actually meant for reset my password. I can go into state 2 to fix that. Reset my password should bring us to state 3. Easy fix. Just double click. Instead of a show or hide, we wanted a set panel state. Lightbox panel. So if you were yelling at the screen earlier that I was getting it wrong, don't worry, everything can be fixed. All right, let's test it now. Refresh. Lightbox. I forgot my password. Enter my password. Of course, you could even have error states here like we learned in a previous lesson. Up to you. Reset my password. Hey, we sent an email. Check it out. Okay. All right, that's more realistic. So that's how you would use Axure when you are trying to make a pop-up, whether that's a pop-up for terrible reasons like join our mailing list. Please stop doing that. No user wants that. Or whether it's a more important pop-up or modal overlay dialog box, however you think of it, whatever it happens to be in that moment. If we need to focus people's attention on this, you probably want the treat as lightbox that we added to the show command. And then you can have single messages. You can have messages that move through their own little step-by-step process in here. It's completely up to you because Axure can do all of these things. See you in the next lesson.